When I did a review on my 2006 Nissan Altima, I got one reply where someone asked me to do a follow-up review. Unfortunately, I couldn't because the car had been repossessed by that time. Note to self, never pay for a car with a loan. Always pay for it in cash. It's much safer that way because if you lose your job, at least you still have the car and don't have to worry about losing it. I paid for this car, this 2002 Mercury Sable, in cash, so I actually was able to own it long enough to make a follow-up review. It has been more than 6 months since I purchased the car, and there aren't really that many major issues with the car. However, I will point out all the maintenance that has been done to the car since I bought it. The first thing I did after buying this car was taking it somewhere to get the oil changed. I take oil very seriously because 2 or 3 years ago I bought a 2005 Kia Sedona and it caught fire less than 30 minutes after purchasing it while driving on the highway at around 80 miles per hour. So I take oil very seriously when it comes to cars. I'm not really sure if oil was the reason why the car caught on fire. It actually didn't make itself clear what was wrong with it. There wasn't anything on the dashboard at the time the car caught on fire. It just happened. So yeah. So a few things. I take oil very seriously and I will never trust another Kia car ever again. Now, after getting the oil changed, which cost around $35, the mechanic told me that there was a slow oil leak. Well, actually, he said he didn't know what was leaking, but it was a slow leak. And I'm thinking, you're a mechanic, how do you not know what's leaking from the car? And I didn't see anything leaking under the car after I bought it, because before buying it, I checked under the carriage with the engine running. I didn't see anything leaking underneath it, so I was really confused by this. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna take this to a professional mechanic to see what's wrong with it. I took it to my favorite mechanic in Easton because they know a lot about cars, and I trust that they would be able to tell not only what was leaking from the car, but if there was a leak in the first place. So they did confirm that there was a slow oil leak coming from the car. That was caused by a few valve covers that were leaking, so I got that fixed, and that cost around $500. One night while driving home from work, I noticed a burning smell coming out of the heater vents. This of course made me extremely apprehensive because I bought a 2005 Kia Sedona that caught on fire less than 30 minutes after I drove it home from the dealership. Actually, I was on my way home from the dealership when this happened. So I'm thinking, okay, I smell a burning smell. This is probably fire. I should pull the car over right now. But as it turned out, it wasn't anything as serious as I thought it was. It was just that the blower motor had been clogged and it needed to be replaced. And the blower motor itself only cost $35, but I think it was like $150 to get it installed. Replacing the blower motor did get rid of the burning odor that was coming from the vents, but there are a few other aromas that I noticed also coming from the vents. One of them is the smell of a murky swamp, and the other is the smell of an oily scent. I'm not really sure what's causing either of those. However, no one has ever complained about either of those smells while riding in the car, so maybe it's just my imagination. I have taken the car to a shop to see if they could figure out what's causing the stench, but neither one of the times I've taken it there have they ever said that they could detect any kind of scent coming from the vents. Either way, I solved this problem sort of by putting a bunch of air fresheners in the vents. You can see one right now on the left to hopefully eradicate the problem, and it works pretty much until the air fresheners expire. But for now, that's the only thing I can do to fix that. I can't think of any other problems with the car besides routine maintenance. There was one time when I had to replace the PCV valve, but that was pretty much the only thing. The PCV valve actually isn't that expensive. I was able to get the whole system for just $22. Another thing I had to replace when I bought the car was the hood struts, because the hood wouldn't stay open when you opened it. But those also didn't cost that much, only $22. In fact, most parts for this car don't cost that much. The real thing you'll be spending money on is the cost of having them installed. Unless you want to do them yourself, then you can save a lot of money, obviously. Now, I did have a few problems with the brakes in this car. They feel weaker than other cars that I have driven. That could just be because the car is old, who knows. But I took it to the mechanic, and when they tested the brakes, they said there was nothing wrong with them. Just to be on the safe side, though, I did replace all of the brake pads on the front and rear of the car. That didn't really do that much to change the way the brakes feel when I stopped the car, though. I mean, the car stops just fine. It just doesn't stop as fast as a Nissan Altima does. So maybe it's just because it's a different car. Now, there's one major problem I want to point out. It's very common with the Mercury Sable and the Ford Taurus. Now it's a problem with the heater turning itself on. For example, I'll be driving down the road, nothing is on, but then all of a sudden the heater just turns itself on without me pushing any of the buttons that would normally turn the heater on. And it blows the heat at full power until it feels like it doesn't want to anymore. Then it turns the heater off on its own. When the heater turns itself on, all the buttons on the radio freeze. You can't do anything to turn the volume up or down. If you press the bass button, it actually does change what is on the display, but it doesn't actually change the bass. So some of the buttons are functional, they just don't do anything when you press them. For example, I tried turning the air conditioner on when the heat turns itself on, but it doesn't do anything at all. The air conditioner does work though, when the heater stops turning itself on. Sometimes I'll have the air conditioner running and the heater turns on its own. So far, I have not found the solution for this problem. I can't get a straight answer when asking what to do when this happens online. A lot of people have a lot of answers for what it could be, but no one knows for sure what it is. Some people have said online that they have taken this car to several mechanics when they had this problem, and none of them could figure out how to stop it. One person said they tried resetting the computer by unplugging the battery for a few minutes, and that helped for a few days, and then it started again. So maybe there's something wrong with the computer, I don't know. One thing's for certain though, it's kind of weird because I've never had a car where the heater just turns on by itself. In fact, we like to joke about it and say that the ghost of a former owner that died in the car wants you out. So in order to deter you, he turns the heater on full power and won't let you turn it off no matter how hard you try. He wants his vehicle back, and he will do anything in his power to get it back. In fact, one time my father got in the car and he said, "Quickly, the air conditioner's working. Let's get out of here before it realizes that we're in the car." I have sort of a solution for this problem. I bought this fan that is powered by the 12-volt outlet in the car. It works pretty much like the radiator fans on a train and blows the hot air out of the car. It sort of works, but I can still feel hot air blowing onto my feet because when the heater turns itself on, it also turns on the heat that blows towards your feet. And so far I don't have much of a solution for that, besides fixing what's wrong with the heater, but I don't know what's causing it yet. Despite all the issues I mentioned earlier, the car still runs pretty well, and it has never shut down on me while driving, so it's still a pretty reliable car. It just has a few minor issues that need to be dealt with.